Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, I'm going to try to be brief regarding the Minnesota nonsense. But first, let me mention this because I think it's a valid point. With all of the attention on Minnesota, I think people are starting to forget that there are ICE operations happening nationwide in multiple cities. Again, they're in Los Angeles to a great extent. They're in New Orleans, Louisiana, to a great extent, at least from what we've originally been told. They're in Memphis, Tennessee. I mean, there are a number of places, but they're not just in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, with that said, the Alex Preddy guy who got shot and killed the other day, and rightfully so, because he was armed and picking a fight with armed federal agents, not a good idea. The individual is Jewish. There's a picture of him here on my social media and other people's social media, and he says, whatever kind of Jew you don't like, I'm that one. So that's the guy. Good for him. 37 years old. There you go. And again, was armed and was shot. It gets more specific regarding the shooting. He was disarmed while he was resisting arrest and fighting back, and then he was shot. Now, people will turn that into a big deal, or they'll attempt to. They'll say, hey, look, you disarmed him, and then he was shot, so you shot an unarmed individual, and that's your fault, and you're to blame, and you're murderers, and XYZ. I would like people to, again, understand that these people, these brainwashed liberals, whoever they are, whatever they are, regardless of their race, regardless of their age, regardless of their sex, they are protecting copious amounts of illegality. You can pick one. It can be illegal aliens. It can be child molesters. It can be rapists, murderers. Pick one. And then, of course, we know it's fraud. And they're defending individuals who are engaging in copious amounts of fraud that are stealing from every American taxpayer. And, of course, politicians have been in on this entire time. The entire time we've been alive, this has been going on. More specifically, this was from Data Republican over on X. They said, take a look and oh my God, 184 NPIs at 2614 Nicolette, which was the road where the individual was shot and killed, where he was obstructing, of course, an investigation and or an arrest. They said that's just healthcare providers, not including childcare, and none of them are on an exclusion list. So a national provider identifier is a unique 10-digit identification number assigned to healthcare providers in the United States by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. Point being, the buildings were vacant. And there are illegal healthcare providers who have names and locations in vacant buildings where there's no healthcare being conducted there by any stretch of the imagination. This, again, is what our military and certainly ICE and others are directly looking at and exposing for people to blatantly see. And this, of course, is the problem with brainwashing, is that it's very, very effective. You have endless individuals being defrauded, not caring that they're being defrauded, and then pulling themselves closer to their politicians and saying, you're my friend, while also at the exact same time defending illegal aliens who are engaging in that fraud when they themselves are the ones being defrauded. I mean, it is remarkable. It's incredible, the brainwashing. So don't ever say it doesn't work, because it most certainly does. Now, on top of that, everybody understands cumulative risk. Again, you don't flick the testicles of a tiger. You just don't do it. And what you also don't do is you don't obstruct justice. And you don't walk up and interfere and impede. Again, if you watch the video from multiple angles of the shooting, which was interesting, I think, and again, there were people, I'll run through the scenario first, and then I'll get into what some people were saying about it, which, as it turns out, is not true. But agents were getting out of their cars, and of course, as we know already, these liberal whack jobs are running up and following these individuals around, following ICE agents around, and obstructing justice. I mean, that's what they're doing, and that alone is a crime. You can't follow police around all day long and then expect the police to never pull you over and say, why are you following me? They're going to do that, which is why you don't do that. Only a deranged person would do such a thing. So they get out of their car and they're conducting an investigation, or they're walking up to warn individuals to stay away from them while they're engaging in their investigation. And there's an ICE agent who pushes a woman backwards. She falls into the snow, and then that's it. And then as soon as that happens, that's when the Preddy guy comes up and he pushes the ICE agent. Huge mistake. Life-altering mistake. And then, of course, he's tackled to the ground, his gun's taken away, he's immediately shot, and then there you have it. Again, not everybody clearly, but endless liberal individuals are looking past all of those facts, and then they're just honing in on the fact that he was shot and killed. Not to mention, a great deal of the so-called protesters who are there, they're all being bussed in, and this has been proven. Even CARE, that particular organization, is helping fund a lot of those buses and bring those individuals into Minneapolis. And then, of course, the left is using it as a giant script, as if to say, we were peacefully protesting, like their mayor said the other day, and he's a complete whack job. But he was out there saying, look, we've had peaceful protests over the last couple of days. No one was hurt, no one was injured, no one was killed. In fact, in the last couple of weeks, there have been only 3 murders, 2 of which came from ICE. Well, no, that's not true, because they weren't murders. If they were murders, they'd be arrested for murder. But they were clearly engaging in lawful activities. So, no, 2 individuals, Renee Good and this particular person, again, they were obstructing justice. That goes without saying. The problem is even this, and I'm going to take a bit of a right turn here, but you have individuals out there, again, who do a great deal of analysis and a great deal of looking into information, and I'm grateful for it, and they do a very good job. They also, unfortunately, sometimes get a little stretchy when it comes to particular information, and then they pose particular questions, but it's almost as if they're posing it like it isn't really a question, more of a statement or even a fact. And I'm specifically referencing Dave over at News Treason on Rumble. And I've referenced his work before, along with Rambo and Joe Rambo and the Rambo and Friends gang. Again, I like those guys, and they're thinkers, and they have conversations, and it's good stuff. But I was watching him on Saturday night, and he was openly saying things like, hey, there's people out there saying that this is an entire operation, and it's all staged and fake. And then he's making some connections to Q drops, and he's doing this and he's doing that. Some of the connections look legit to me, but other connections, they're basically, it's easy to prove that what he's saying and the statements or even questions he's raising are not accurate. There were a couple of things. First of all, if you've ever seen shootings on footage, you understand that a person who is armed, or a person who maybe has been just disarmed but is still engaging in resisting arrest, that person is going to be shot. It happens all of the time. So that's not unusual. I would say that's number one. Number two, it was not staged because, again, if you've ever seen real shootings, it looked about as legit as a shooting would. Again, you can see the not muzzle flash, but you can see, again, the condensed air that comes out of the gun. You can see certainly the impact that's taking place. These aren't, blood bags or whatever, or airbags that are popping off inside of the person's chest or whatever. I mean, they're being shot. The Charlie Kirk thing was obviously fake, certainly if you slow it down and you look at it and then the way that everybody reacted. But with this, it was legit. And then he made a statement where he said, well, it was like, it was the opposite of the Renee Good shooting, because in that particular scene, there was caution tape that was put up and they treated it like a scene of, not a crime, but a scene where someone would be shot and killed. And as it turns out, there was caution tape around this particular scene. In fact, they closed off the whole road as they did what they do and engaged in their quick investigation. And then, of course, noticed immediately that he was dead and he didn't need medical attention. And then they scooped him up and they took him away. So, again, when people start saying that something is even fake when it's easily provable that it's not, that's when you've got to you have to use your own discernment, and you have to think clearly for yourself and slow the footage down and, just back off of it a little bit and immediately stop assuming that every single person is an actor and every single person is fake. In fact, I'll take it a step further, and this is where I disagree with some of those guys on some of this. They seem to believe, and they certainly sound as if, they're communicating like everybody's an actor. Like every bad politician has been touched by the white hats and basically said, you're going to say what we want you to say, you're going to do what we want you to do, and you're going to react emotionally to particular things when we want you to, because that's all a part of this script and that's what's going to happen. I don't think that that's occurring all of the time. I think that some of these people maybe have gotten to, but the vast majority have not. I think that they are legitimately crazy. I think that these leftists, certainly the Jacob Frys of the world and the Amy Klobuchars of the world and all of these other, again, very homely, disgusting, left-wing females that and even males that show up to the lectern and start screaming and yelling, and we're here with you and we support you and, blah, blah, blah. They're pouring gas on the fire, but it's not because they've been controlled to do that from a white hat standpoint anyway. I think it's just because that's who they are. Evil still exists. These people are still predictably nuts. You can still take any event and know that they're going to take that event and twist it to benefit them and their so-called narrative any way that they want. So that can never be discredited. And you can never, at least, I would say discredited is the wrong word. You can never discount their ability to do that. They'll always do that because that's who they are. But here's the fun part, and it's always the hypocrisy, because the hypocrisy is ever present. You see these individuals, these left-wing individuals, again, they'll have a candlelight vigil in my little town with a couple dozen whack jobs, old hippies and lonely women, lonely male, husbandless, childless women, or they'll drag their children to this and brainwash them. But they'll have a candlelight vigil for the Renee Goodgal, but they won't do it for anybody else because it's not the flavor of the day or the flavor of the week. They won't do it for this Jewish guy. It's not going to happen. There's too much snow on the ground now. There's at least 14 inches of snow. They can't be bothered. That's, again, the weather gets in their way. But they never know what battles to pick. And when they pick one, they're always wrong. Again, Jacob Fry came to the microphone the other day, again, when everybody had their turn, and he openly said, not just again about the number of deaths and 2 were from ICE. He said everybody's been peacefully protesting. Property hasn't been damaged. Everybody's being lawful. But we want law enforcement out. And then he says, we want more funding for law enforcement. We want more local law enforcement. We want more state police because we want the feds out. That's the blinding hypocrisy. Because in 2020, the city was burning to the ground. And he never came to the lectern and told people to stop, said we need more law enforcement, XYZ. It was all defund the police, burn it to the ground, they're peacefully protesting. Yes, things are burning to the ground, but that's the way that they peacefully protest, etc., etc. This is the never-ending hypocrisy of the left and the never-ending brainwashing that's been going on since the beginning of time. It has them by the throat, and it will never release its grip. Again, some people are waking up to it, and some people are changing their lives, and they're saying, you know what, I've been wrong my whole life. And that's fine, because a lot of people have been wrong about a lot of things, and they're continuously learning. But people like him need the unaware and the brainwashed to support him. Because again, it's the emperor has no clothes. He's tricking endless people into believing that he has none when in fact he has plenty. And more than enough to, of course, give to endless people. Which also brings into discussion the entire Insurrection Act thing one more time. And I'm going to try to be brief with this, but again, It's already been in effect. January 6th of 2021 was when the Insurrection Act, in my opinion, was implemented. No doubt about it. If it wasn't implemented before then, when they had the comms that they were going to be doing this to begin with from the bad guys, certainly when the 2020 election was stolen. Again, the night of the 2020 election would have been a great night to impose the Insurrection Act. But do you need to tell the people that you've imposed the Insurrection Act? No, you don't. You don't have to make a formal announcement to the people. There's some public words that by law are stated that have to be said, but Donald Trump already said it on the 6th of January, 2021. Back then, again on Twitter, before they took down his Twitter account, he said the words insurrection. He said, again, everybody needs to go home. Everybody needs to disperse, peacefully protest, but it's time to leave. That's what you have to say lawfully before you again implement the Insurrection Act. And then very quickly, again, his Twitter account was deleted, and that was the end of it. It's been in play this entire time. The thing that hasn't been is a public consciousness and a news media that, of course, is controlled, much of which I think by good guys, certainly based on executive orders and the Law of War Manual and XYZ. But for the first time ever, the news media is bringing up the Insurrection Act. And they're having these discussions on their shows 24/7, 365 now. Not 365, not yet anyway, but it's certainly been in play here for a very long time. When are you going to impose the Insurrection Act? Or when are you going to sign it so that you can take over an area? And again, the Insurrection Act, as it's been said numerous times, is there to amplify the Constitution. And what you can do with it, of course, is you can remove endless judges. But you don't have to tell the people. That's the cool part. You can just make these judges disappear. They violated the law, they've done this, they've done that, and then you just pluck them without anybody knowing. And then if anybody does know in that immediate circle of that particular judge who's been plucked, you tell those individuals, if you tell anybody, then we're going to come and arrest you because you're obstructing justice. And you're seeking to make things worse. You're fighting the Insurrection Act, which is a lawful order. Whether that be non-disclosure agreements or whatever. Certainly punishable by jail time, if not worse. So I think, again, that's exactly what's going on here, which is a very, very cool thing. It's not that we're going to be told everything. It's not that we're necessarily going to be shown everything. But if you slow down, you can start to pick the pieces and consistently ask yourself the question, have we ever seen this before? Has the media ever openly discussed the Insurrection Act before, certainly in our lifetimes? And by and large, the answer is no. Even though it's been used in the past, it's been used without the public knowing because, again, the public doesn't have to know. And the ones on the left who, of course, subscribe to that political ideology, most of the communists, they don't know what the Insurrection Act is, what it entails, and that it's already in play. They don't even know, and they're not even thinking about it. BioClandestine over on X said the following: 1,500 plus 11th Infantry on standby, 500 plus military police on standby, 500 plus federalized National Guard QRF on standby, 3,000 plus DHS ICE agents on site, undisclosed FBI/DOJ on site en route, Antifa calling for violent uprisings, Dems engaged in open rebellion, Trump calling Dems insurrectionalists, quote unquote. And then he puts a meme at the bottom that says, oh yeah, it's all coming together. It's rather obvious, again, what direction everything is heading in. And the fact that anybody would even want to get involved in something for which they have no idea what's going on. Like this Petty guy and Renee Good and any other left-wing whack job. Again, they always leap before they look. But the fact that they're getting involved in something that they have no idea what's really taking place, well, fuck around and find out, because that's exactly what's happening. The funny part about all of this too is, and this is an interesting angle, is that even politicians don't seem to be bringing this up with anybody. They're all tight-lipped also. Now, again, are they tight-lipped because they're controlled? I don't know. But they're certainly tight-lipped. Even the ones on the left aren't looking at their constituents and saying, go home. There are things taking place here for which you cannot comprehend. I mean, even they aren't thinking, even they aren't suspecting that Donald Trump has all the goods on these people. The military is in charge and has been in charge. Donald Trump's just the figurehead, but all of this is being done on purpose because there's a bigger operation at play here. Even the left-wing politicians aren't backing off. You'd think they would, but they're not. You'd think that they'd slow down and get quiet and stop speaking about things for which they know nothing about, but they don't. Again, they don't even know that these rogue judges are not supposed to be ruling the way that they're ruling. As if, again, they have power over the President of the United States. Certainly, if these judges do not know that the Insurrection Act has been signed and is currently in play, let alone multiple military operations taking place, which means every single time that the Trump administration and the military are doing a particular thing, it's because they can lawfully do it without obstruction, without judges getting involved. This was just the other day on the White House's own page. The Supreme Court ended excessive nationwide injunctions, and of course they call it a big win. The White House counsel David Warrington said the following, quote, "Today's decision restores the proper separation of powers between the branches of government. Ending nationwide injunctions is a tremendous victory for the American people and the rule of law." And then it goes on, not his quote, but it goes on, it says, "No longer can rogue activist judges abuse their authority to dictate the executive powers of the President of the United States," the Supreme Court ruled. A massive victory for the Constitution, the rule of law, and the presidency itself. Since the moment President Trump took office, low-level activist judges have been exploiting their positions to kneecap the agenda on which he was overwhelmingly elected. In fact, of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against President Trump's executive actions in his second term, 35 of them came from just 5 far-left jurisdictions: California, Maryland, Massachusetts, Washington, and the District of Columbia. Now, the Trump administration can promptly proceed with critical action to save the country, like ending birthright citizenship, seizing sanctuary city funding, please do it in Oxford, Ohio, suspending refugee resettlement, please do that in Oxford, Ohio too, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping taxpayers from funding transgender surgeries, and much more. Again, all good stuff. But then you have this, which is, again, a bit disturbing. This was from the Gateway Pundit the other day, and it was titled "House Blocks Amendment That Would Have Cut Funding for DEI, Child Mutilation, and More Awful Items in Spending Package. These 76 GOPers joined the Democrats." It says, in addition to the 76 Republicans, quote unquote, who betrayed the conservative movement, 9 more did not even bother voting on the measure. These included House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and House Majority Whip Tom Emmer. Per the Daily Caller, here are a few of the earmarks that the House voted to keep. Notice which states are included. One earmark, sharply criticized by conservatives, would allocate $2 million to Ratty Children's Hospital in San Diego, California for quote-unquote pediatric mental health services. It says the hospital, San Diego County's sole pediatric medical center, operates a center for gender-affirming care, which performs various sex change procedures according to the nonprofit Do No Harm. Again, listen to their word usage and the titles of these places. It's backwards. Everything is backwards and upside down and inside out because, again, that's deception. That's the devil. It goes on, it says conservative Republicans also blasted a $3 million earmark for Minnesota's Henny Pin healthcare system to build a substance use disorder treatment clinic. The hospital system also operates a pediatric clinic offering puberty blockers and hormone therapies to children. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this right here is exactly what the individuals protesting fraud are supporting. And you have endless Republican congressmen supporting this as well. Again, the people who believe in the left-right paradigm, that's a problem. It's a serious problem. Another notable earmark, it said, requested by Democratic Massachusetts Senators Elizabeth Warren, of course, and Ed Markey, also crazy, would allocate $375,000 for arts education, quote unquote, at the Massachusetts-based dancer center Jacob's Pillow. Could it sound more gay? Could the place sound more queer if it wanted to? The organization says diversity, equity, and inclusion principles, quote, animate our mission and inform the vitality of our daily operations, unquote. Just call yourselves a gay operation. We are flaming homosexuals. We love grooming children. We want drag queen story hour time all day long. Just say that. You don't have to call it Jacob's Pillow. Again, very gay. I'm shocked that people don't have gaydars anymore. I still have mine. It's worked my whole life. Again, I can look at people and figure it out. I can see words like this and be like, I know exactly what they do there. I got it. I got it figured out. You have to hand it to the devil, though. Again, this is the pacification of the human mind. These individuals slowly begin to accept degeneracy. And they start to say, well, they're people too, and you don't have to agree with it, but you shouldn't criticize it. No, we get to criticize it. It's not just disgusting, it's fraudulent. And if anybody believes that $375 some odd thousand is just going to go to some center, no. Elizabeth Warren gets a cut, Ed Markey gets a cut, everybody gets a cut, and by the time it's all said and done, the amount of money that actually goes to anything productive is zero. But that's fraud. And endless individuals, again, are 100% fine with it. They wouldn't be fine with it if somebody broke into their house, put a gun in their face, and said, open up your safe and give me what's in it. They wouldn't want that. But they have no problem taxing themselves to death. They have no problem, again, supporting these kinds of movements and motions and votes and whatever, money changing hands and organizations, quote unquote, and anything else. They love losing their money that way, but they don't want it taken away from them directly. Here's another way that it's being taken away from people, again, indirectly, but kind of directly as well. This also from the Gateway Pundit. My apologies on the constant reference here. The mayor of New York is back at it, and he announces that children of illegal aliens will be included in the city's quote-unquote free childcare program. No such thing as free. Give him a listen in 3, 2, 1.
These are programs for every single New Yorker. These are not programs that are going to ask the immigration status of any one of the children. All of those children are New Yorkers. They should all be enrolled in pre-K and 3K, no matter where they were born or where they come from. And we are also proud to be a sanctuary city. What a sanctuary city means is that we have policies in place, policies that have existed for years in this city, that deny ICE agents access into schools, hospitals, city properties, or even the properties of city contractors, unless those ICE agents can present a judicial warrant signed by a judge. We know that the vast majority of the time, ICE agents are not presenting that kind of documentation. If they're presenting any documentation, it tends to be an administrative warrant, and oftentimes there isn't any documentation even provided. So we want to make clear the rights of every New Yorker that they have.
The audio clip cuts there. Let me run you through a scenario. Again, first of all, sort of fraud to the side for just a second, even though it should be obvious. It's going to come out of the pockets of taxpayers. None of it is free. That should go without saying. But policies are not laws. He can have all the policies on the books that they have. We have a policy that says this, and we have a policy that says that. And then, of course, he lets the cat out of the bag, and he says unless there's a judicial warrant issued, they can't enter schools. So let me run you through a school scenario that I think is right on the verge of occurring here because it's one that hasn't happened yet. We've seen it on the streets, but not in a school. And wouldn't that be neat if it happened inside of a school, this particular scenario I'll lay out, and then all hell breaks loose in every school across the nation. I think we're right there. We're almost there. ICE agents get a lawful warrant to enter a school to arrest anybody in the building who is illegal, even detain students whose parents have already been arrested for being illegal, because now they are the child of government, basically. They're no longer the child of the parent, not while everybody's being detained and being processed or being deported, but they immediately become a child of government. The school cannot intervene. They have to let the child, again, leave. The aspect that people are not considering is that there are illegal alien children who are teenagers, 16, 17, 18, and even older, still in high schools, and that some of them may be armed. People have to consider that that's a thing, that is going on right now, because again, they don't want to be detained by ICE lawfully, which means if ICE enters to arrest said teenager, to either detain them, deport them, whatever, what do you think's going to happen? Again, this is cumulative risk all over again. There's going to be a shooting in a school that's going to be ICE related with, again, a minor or not a minor who's probably in illegal possession of a firearm. And then in typical fashion, the hypocrisy from the liberals is going to be what, do you think? ICE agents kill a minor in a school building. School policy nationwide needs to change and blah, blah, blah. That'll be the story. ICE agents murder child. That'll be the headline. And it'll all be a giant distraction from the fraud that, of course, is taking place, not just within the education system and the healthcare systems and everything else, all these fake daycares, everything else. But the focus will be on the fact that schools are so-called sanctuary areas. Again, if you talk to any of these superintendents by and large, certainly in the more left-wing states and certainly, again, in the more left-wing areas, they're going to say just what he said, that all students are welcome here and everybody's safe and ICE isn't allowed here and you need to stay away from schools and blah, blah, blah. Again, I've brought all of that up on the show before, but it's never actually happened inside of a building to our knowledge yet. And if I had to venture to guess, the feds are doing their best to keep that from happening because they don't want another nationwide school reaction like they got in 2020 with the COVID lie. Because that's how people would respond. That's how they would react. Now, since we can predict the behavior of a liberal, certainly a liberal educator, so to speak, quote unquote, why don't we just do this? The fact is that if such a thing happened, it wouldn't matter where it happened or what the circumstances were. So-called educators would protest. Their unions would protest. Their unions would allow them to protest. There would be walkouts, sign making, sign raising, shouting, news coverage, the whole thing. Can't you see it happening? I certainly can. These people are so foolish, again, they are like sheep to the slaughter. They can be led around with the latest, greatest, again, NPC upload that takes place with these people. And they'll flat out fall for it. All while claiming at the exact same time that they just want to get back into the classroom and teach without the fear of having ICE knock down their door. It's the COVID script all over again. I don't want to go back into the classroom because I don't want to get sick and I don't want my students to die. Well, it's the same thing here. It would be the same thing in that kind of a scenario. And I'm telling you, I feel like we're right there, or like it's right around the corner. I mean, after all, a liberal likes nothing more than playing the victim. They love the victim status. It's a blue ribbon that they give themselves all of the time. I'm the victim, woe is me, look at me, I'm the victim. An entire school, let alone a district, would love for that to be the case. Even though they would be embarrassing themselves publicly on a national stage, which is something that you would think most of them would want to avoid. But they don't think that well, and they don't think that deeply. Certainly not in the long term, let alone the short term. They're just not thinking people. I'm just going to tell you, I think that's going to happen. I think that that's one of those things that's likely to occur in the future because it's a social engineering experiment. And it's already played out before, which means why not do it again? The script is generally the same, but some of the characters are a little different, and some of the motives are a little different. But again, it's the same movie. It's like a John Wayne movie. If you've ever seen a number of his movies as I have, you can actually pick up on how some of the movies are almost identical. It's the same script, it's just different people playing different roles. Even the buildings are sometimes the same. But at the exact same time, some people don't pick up on that. But again, when it comes to social engineering, the left will never pick up on it. Because again, they're neck deep in it. They're involved. They're the ones being led around. Now, to kind of summarize all this before I move on, I want to spend a second on something here called physiognomy. And some people, of course, would say that physiognomy is a discredited pseudoscience. I disagree. And I'm going to define it here in just a second, but I want to tell you this quick little story first. When I was a kid, and I'll preface it also by saying this, that I find this remarkably beneficial and have my entire life. It's probably saved my life, without a doubt. When I was a child, I used to read comic books, and I wouldn't even read them, because a lot of kids don't. I would just look at them, and I would observe the comic book, every single page, from left to right, top to bottom, and I would hone in on the characters, all of them, not just the main characters. And over time, you could clearly see that the way that comic books were designed, they were designed that way on purpose from the authors, specifically the illustrators, to make sure that the facial expressions of people and the way that the faces of people were structured would lead the onlooker, the observer, and or the reader to make a determination as to whether or not an individual was either good, bad, indifferent, being used, hiding something, involved in something deeper, naive to what's going on, and a variety of other back and forth ebb and flows on a spectrum of basically the human existence. I absolutely loved comic books for that reason alone. The faces of the people who were in these books. And it didn't, again, have to be the superheroes, emphasis on heroes, and then, of course, the supervillains. The way that their faces are illustrated and the way that their faces look and the way that they physically look was purposefully done the way that it was done to emphasize this is the look of someone you can trust and this is the look of someone you cannot. But once you look past the heroes and the villains that are consistently battling one another who have so-called superpowers, or so some of them would think, what you end up with is everybody sort of in the background. All the regular characters who are alive like you and me, and then you have to make determinations about whether or not they can be trusted. And in those comic books, almost regardless of the kind, certainly the ones from the 1980s, and of course earlier than that, I'm sure it's still the same way today, although there's more queers in the comic books today, but either way, I mean, that didn't exist back then, at least not to my knowledge, but you could pay attention again to sort of the bystander facial expression and the police officer and the judge and the lawyer and the doctor and the this and the that and whatever else. And you could pick out who was the pushover and who wasn't, who was the bootlicker and who wasn't, who was the individual who wanted to do more but couldn't, who was the person who was on the right side of the law and who wasn't. And you could figure that out again, not by just reading the dialogue. You didn't even have to read the dialogue. You could just look at their faces in the scenarios and figure this out. That's what I did when I was a kid. And like I said, it's probably saved my life. But I had a stack of comic books that was almost, I want to say, 2 feet high. Again, it was G.I. Joe comic books, Superman, Batman, the whole DC gang. I love those guys. There was some Marvel characters mixed in as well. But that was generally it. But it mattered. And that's physiognomy. That's the point. Your ability to look at a person's facial expressions and the way that they carry themselves. It's not just what they say, it's more of and it's not even profiling per se, although it's close. But you're looking at somebody and you're saying, can I trust that person? Do I think that that person knows what I know? Is that a good person, or is that somebody, again, who seems like they are, again, hiding something? Are they engaging in illegality? What humans don't understand, and this is, again, the funny part, which gives me the advantage, and people like me the advantage, is you can look at people and you can make that judgment, and you're allowed to make that judgment. Everybody is, because, again, it's innate to us as human beings to have this ability to do that. But you look at people and you can make that judgment, and you'll probably be correct the vast majority of the time. Now, if you saw the Jacob Fry news conference with Amy Klobuchar, again, the homely women behind him, the cop, whoever that other guy was, the black dude on the right side, whatever. If you just take that snapshot and you look at them without even listening to them, but you take a screenshot of it and you look at their faces, it doesn't matter what's being said. It's obvious that they're hiding something. It's obvious that they are not good people. It's obvious that they are on the wrong side of the law. And it's obvious that some of them want to say more than what they're saying. But again, you can pick up on this by looking at their face. And it's not just, again, the structure of their face, although that has something to do with it, but it's the way that their eyes look. It's the wrinkles in their skin. It's the way that they wear their hair, the way that they dress, the way they carry themselves, where their hands are placed. Are they rolling their eyes or are they not? People can pick up on this, and it's a very important characteristic, I think, to have. I'll end with this, actually. I meant to sort of intertwine this a little bit earlier, but I'll come around and hit on this now. If you're on social media or you've paid attention to it, certainly within the last couple of days, you may have noticed all of the penguin imagery that's popped up, certainly from government, the White House, and other departments, Department of War and others, Homeland Security potentially. There have been a number of them. The White House account openly said embrace the penguin, and it's Donald Trump and a penguin holding an American flag walking together. And then, of course, there was a video out there having to do with a nature observer. I've forgotten his name, my apologies, but he was out there and he was describing, again, the characteristics of a penguin and how when an individual penguin has lost a mate or their mate has passed away, they do not associate with the other penguins. They don't pick up another mate. So what they do is they leave the entire colony. They leave the group and they head off in a separate direction completely. Whether that's to die, which it usually ends up being the case, but point is they break free from the mold. They stand out again as experiencing something different and then being different, and then they leave. Some would say even wake up. Either way, all of those comms were taking place the other day, which a lot of people have picked up on and a lot of people are commenting on. And then people were making the direct implications, of course, that all of this talk having to do with Greenland. And why would you have all of this talk having to do with Greenland and then penguin imagery? And as it turns out, there are no penguins on Greenland. In fact, there's no penguins on the so-called North Pole, as people again believe it to be. But the penguins actually live to the south of us. Now, if you've listened to the show long enough, you fully understand that I know that Earth is not a spinning ball, and that it's most certainly a flat surface, and that it is, again, circular like a disc and then enclosed. The interesting part, too, is that much of that land that surrounds us is a giant ice wall. Anybody can look up Operation High Jump. It's a real thing. And once you do that, you'll probably come across the name of Admiral Byrd. So Admiral Byrd was an individual, again, who discovered this particular area through exploration, through the military, and then openly said, hey, look, there's all this undiscovered land. And anybody, again, can look him up on YouTube, and you can watch his full-form interview. It's in black and white, and it's interesting. But he's openly saying there's all this undiscovered land, and we have more to discover, and that's what needs to take place. But the penguin imagery isn't pointing to Greenland, really, at least based on what a lot of these anons are leading to. Specifically here, it says Red Pill Drifter on X, at Red Pill Drifter. I follow them, and they said the following. What is the nickname of the Freemason Lodge Admiral Byrd was in? What did Admiral Byrd claim he saw and discovered? Why is this important? And they said, answer these 3 questions, and you will understand the White House post, where the White House said, embrace the penguin, and then again it was a picture of Donald Trump and a penguin walking toward a mountain, certainly again in presumably Antarctica, or what we know to be Antarctica. An individual below that post asked Grok, the AI system on X, about those particular questions, and Grok said, again, here are the answers. Antarctic Lodge number 777, nicknamed Order of the Penguin. Number 2, he discovered Mount Sidley and claimed vast, unexplored lands in Antarctica, including warm oases and advanced phenomena in some accounts. And then 3, ties the theory of hidden Antarctic resources and geopolitics, probably symbolizing U.S. interest in polar regions as hinted in recent White House imagery, unquote. A lot of people, again, are openly pointing to this, and they're saying, again, when the government, specifically the Trump administration, all hones in on the same thing, they're trying to talk with the knowledgeable citizens out here that there's more to the imagery that they're showing you than what meets the eye. And the fact is that the polls, as people believe them to be, that those have always been massive geopolitical landscapes where bad guys had a lot of bad stuff planned. And again, if good guys are now in control of it, then that's basically them saying, yes, they're in control of it, but also there's more out there. So when you again think of things like Space Force, people think of outer space and they think of stars and planets and all that nonsense. That's fake. And it's provably fake. But you can't say something is fake when it hasn't been proven. And what people haven't done is they haven't gone up that ice wall, certainly civilians, because you're not allowed. They go up that ice wall, and then they just keep walking south, which, as the flat Earth map is, it's south in every direction, regardless of what country you're on. So if you're just, again, as far as a compass is concerned, geographically walking southward, you will eventually hit that ice wall, regardless of where we live in what country. And then again, if you were to scale that, which would be next to impossible without a helicopter, of course, how on earth would you know what's beyond it if you've never even been there and there's no video footage of going beyond it? So that's the interesting part about a lot of these communications that are taking place is there's multiple military operations going on right now. There's no way we're going to know what all of them are. But don't believe something just at face value without understanding that there's more to it than what's being presented. I'll just kind of leave it there. Again, there's a lot there, but I'll just leave it there for now. It's not accidental. That's basically the point that I'm trying to make. It's a wink and a nod. It's a hat tip, and it's sort of an indicator that something else is going on. They wouldn't just put out all those penguin communications by accident, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Now, moving on here. This is disturbing, and also, again, not accidental. I put together a Substack here, the most recent, and it specifically, again, has to do with AI, the workforce, and essentially the erasure of human characteristics and human traits and the human element. And you can bounce over there and check it out. It's not very long. But I came across a particular article, again, that had to do with how individuals in their 50s are sort of, I would say, so-called reinventing themselves and re-entering different lines of work, whereas they've had a career in a particular area for maybe 30 plus years or so, or even shorter than that. And then why is it that that's the case, and why is it that that's happening? Again, does AI have something to do with it? Does it have to do with individuals, again, wanting to be more healthy and this, that, and the other? But one of the sad parts, again, that's worth sort of revisiting very quickly is that AI was thrust on all of humanity without our consent. And it was done, of course, incrementally over time. You had the internet, you had search engines, which is artificial intelligence, and then it's become so refined that it problem solves. Now it's getting to a point where the individuals who have created AI use it, of course, from a military standpoint to sort of war game what's likely to occur in certain situations. And then, of course, do they know how to use it or don't they? But I would say more steady, and certainly more from a societal standpoint, is how are individuals viewing artificial intelligence, certainly the individuals who are the figureheads of this movement, good or bad or indifferent or whatever. And then what are they saying about it, and how do they plan on using it? Clearly, Elon Musk, in my opinion, is a bit of a megalomaniac, and he's certainly a technocrat. And I don't think those are good things, unless, of course, as I say in the article, that he's acting. But I think that he's just off base to a great extent, because, again, at the World Economic Forum here this past week, he was going off about how everybody's going to have a robot in their home in the future. And eventually, robots are going to be able to do human jobs, and then all human jobs. And then ultimately, again, the long-term plan is that not only will everybody have a so-called robot that can do a variety of different things, but it'll do the things, again, that humans can do from a very general standpoint and a very, again, basic standpoint, leading to what's referred to as artificial general intelligence. So it'll do things like cooking and cleaning and mowing your lawn and whatever else. That's essentially what the article is about, and I, of course, don't like any of that, because it takes away the human element. It takes away problem solving for a human. It takes away the ability to do all of the things that come innately from God, given to us to be humans, which is satanic to remove all of that. That's my opinion. Not everybody has to share that, but that's what I think. So I'm not a fan of artificial intelligence, even though there are times when I use it, but I've been very specific as to the situations where I use it and what I use it for. I certainly don't use it in an effort to have a robot around me making me a pancake. That's not what I want it for. And somebody would say, well, why wouldn't you want one to do that? Well, as even Elon Musk pointed out, they shoot software updates into Teslas almost on a weekly basis, which means why would they not have the ability to do that for the robots that everybody plans on having? So Elon Musk thinks, to where there will be more robots than there are humans. And then they receive a daily or weekly or down to the second software update, and then they turn against human beings. If you've ever seen the footage of these robots flipping out on human beings inside of these labs before, where they're testing them out, I mean, it's hilarious, but it's also frightening. So again, I'm half joking, but at the exact same time, it's been played out in the movie Terminator. And certainly Terminator 2, where even the robot says, you have to kill me because I'll never be human and I can easily be programmed to turn against you as I was in the past. So you have to kill me, and you have to kill the chip that keeps me going. And of course, that's how the movie ends. So even the robot knows that it has to die. The problem is that this stretches right, of course, into warfare. And it even stretches specifically into government action and congressional action. This came from the Gateway Pundit again on the 23rd of January 2026 here, and it said, disturbing, House rejects effort to defund a kill switch mandate for cars, allowing government to shut off your vehicle, and here are the 57 GOPers who voted to keep the mandate. Again, this is not good. The business of kill switches in automobiles could have been defeated in Congress, but they kept it going. Why? Blackmail. It's just all about money and blackmail and advancing this giant, again, agenda where the technocratic state continues to rule over people with or without their compliance, with or without their knowledge and know-how. This also dates back to this on January 9th, which I want to read also. Again, it ties right into the wireless body area network and the fact that these individuals running these AI systems and these technical systems, they know that it's having both negative health impacts on people, even playing with their heart rate, which is remarkably detrimental. It's probably playing with mine. But at the exact same time, it can be weaponized, which I've been over on the show in endless years and previous episodes before, and all the paperwork is available on my website regarding that as well. But this was from Pete Hegseth himself, the Secretary of War, on January 9th, 2026. It was titled Memorandum for Senior Pentagon Leadership, Commanders of the Combatant Commands Defense Agency and DOW Field Activity Directors. The subject is Artificial Intelligence Strategy for the Department of War. It says the following here, Accelerating America's Military AI Dominance. President Trump makes clear in Executive Order 14179, quote, it is the policy of the United States to sustain and enhance America's global artificial intelligence dominance in order to promote human flourishing, economic competitiveness, and national security. In the national security domain, AI-enabled warfare and AI-enabled capability development will redefine the character of military affairs over the next decade. This transformation is a race fueled by the accelerating pace of commercial AI innovation coming out of America's private sector. The United States military must build on its lead over our adversaries in integrating this technology established during President Trump's first term to make our warfighters more lethal and efficient. That can be interpreted a number of different ways, but it goes on. It says, to this end, aligned with America's AI action plan, I direct the Department of War to accelerate America's military AI dominance by becoming an AI-first warfighting force across all components from front to back. It says the department will achieve this objective by the following, and there's 4 bullet points. Number 1, unleashing experimentation with America's leading AI models department-wide and rewarding AI-first reconceptions of legacy approaches. Again, that has endless interpretations that a person could dive into for hours, both good and bad. The next one says aggressively identifying and eliminating bureaucratic barriers to deeper integration, which are vestiges of legacy information technology and modes of warfare. Again, that can be interpreted lots of ways too. Getting rid of the riffraff and using AI to do that, great. But eliminating people and potentially people who don't need to be eliminated? I don't know. Again, it can be interpreted lots of different ways. The third one says focusing our investment to leverage America's core asymmetric advantages in AI computing, model innovation, entrepreneurial dynamism, capital markets, and combat-proven operational data from 2 decades of military and intelligence operations that no other military can replicate. And finally, the last one, executing a set of pace-setting projects, PSPs, that will demonstrate the accelerated pace of execution, focus, and ethos we need to stay ahead. The pace-setting projects, PSPs, will also serve as tangible, outcome-oriented vehicles for rapidly completing our build-out of the foundational AI enablers, infrastructure, data models, policies, and talent needed to accelerate AI integration across the entire department, unquote. Again, I can't help but think that there's some good in this. However, the health person in me is saying there's a lot of bad that comes with this. Again, if you go back to the time of the implementation of the telegraph, the military using it was the first to receive ill health effects as a result of putting it up and then living around it and being around it. The advent, of course, of 5G, of course, and 6G and everything else, and all of the technical tools and wireless environments that we live in, there is no doubt it's having a negative health ramification on endless people. There's also this specifically relating to Ohio, and of course, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a nightmare. But this is the constitutionalist over on X at We Will Be Free 24, and I follow them over there, and they have a lot of great content, again, specifically regarding Ohio. But they said the following here on January 24th, Ohio data centers, or as pro-development, quote-unquote, Vivek Ramaswamy likes to call it, the Silicon Heartland Project. They said, let's get into it. 217 data centers in Ohio. Ohio is ranked as 5th in the nation for the number of data centers. Top developers are Google, Amazon, and Meta. Existing data centers have increased energy costs by 10 to 15% per Ohio household. The next point says developers are given local property tax exemptions of 75% for 15 to 30 years, totaling $2.5 billion to $120 million annually. It says surge in energy consumption strains the existing power grid, resulting in billions of dollars of taxpayer-funded infrastructure upgrades, i.e., Perry Nuclear Plant. It says rapid data center expansion is drastically consuming farmland, resulting in the decline in Ohio's farm industry. Data center expansion is driving up the cost of surrounding land desperately needed for housing development. The next one says environmental concerns, massive water consumption for cooling, and wastewater contamination into lakes and streams, including Lake Erie and the Ohio River, chemicals, PFAS, and F-gas. They concluded and said, these are all current facts and statistics. They are destroying our beautiful state. The corrupt Ohio GOP continues to sell out Ohio. If Ramaswamy and Macaulay are elected, he will drag every tech company, foreign included, to Ohio. Save Ohio, vote wisely for our children. And of course, they specifically support Casey Putsch, as do I, for governor. This is a huge problem. And this is not one that's going to get better with time, certainly not with Vivek Ramaswamy in office. People are not considering the health ramifications of all of this technology around people. And it is having negative health ramifications for endless people and all people. There is no doubt about it. The health ramifications are endless, and the health impacts that have existed as a result are endless. I've been over them on the show countless times for years here. It's every body system. It's every single body system. It's every single symptom that a person can come up with. And unfortunately, again, people will tie it to stress. They'll tie it to endless other excuses because they don't want to believe for a minute that it's one of the technological toys that they're using, or it's one of the technological tools that they're using, or it's the environment that they're working in, or the time that they are around wired and wireless devices, specifically wireless devices. They don't want to believe for a minute that those are the causes of the things that ail them, when in fact, they probably are. So, again, I don't know how to stop it because it's been around for such a long time. And I'm one person, and I certainly can't stop it. All I can do is continue to educate people about it. Again, as I've always said, I recommend turning off all devices, but before you do, turn them onto airplane mode if that even works. Turn your wireless devices onto airplane mode and then turn them off. And I need to get better in the habit of turning off the Wi-Fi before I go to bed, because that's a big deal. And that's, again, something that people should do. And there's certainly ample evidence out there proving that people sleep better and their bodies heal when the wireless device is turned off. But you turn all your devices onto airplane mode that receive a wireless signal. That way it stops the wireless signal from hitting your device. Then you turn your device off and you keep your devices away from your person. But again, with the walls closing in geographically and sort of this kill box being built around us, again, I don't know how to stop the data centers other than attempting to vote in the right direction. Because people at the WEF conference were talking about it, and how it's going to create all these jobs and blah, blah, blah. Again, they're trying to blow smoke up people's asses about all of it, because it's not going to do that. They'll build the thing that is going to harm the land and the people around it, and then the people who build it leave to go build another one. Just like the people who put up 5G towers. They put up these towers, they do what they do, harm people, of course, and then the people who erect them leave to only go erect another one some other place. And they don't care because they're getting paid copious amounts of money. It's all a part of the wireless body area network. Again, I don't like it. I want nothing to do with it. But it's certainly a subject we're going to continue to bring up here on the show in the coming months, weeks, years, you name it. It's not a subject that's going to go away. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, again, kind of a downer there at the end, but again, people have to vote. And I'll tell you one other thing. This is something that grinds my gears also, and it's something that people can pick up on also. If you're on social media, specifically regarding the gubernatorial race here of Vivek Ramaswamy and others, certainly Casey Putsch, because he has my vote. But you have these individuals, again, who want Vivek in, and you have all of the Ohio's establishment GOP saying things like, and it's remarkably insulting, and they phrase their posts like this: when Vivek Ramaswamy is the next governor of Ohio, we're going to have X, Y, Z, and blah, blah, blah. We haven't even voted yet. And these people have already made their decisions. That means, again, by default, that those people are bought off and sold. They are not interested in listening to the people of Ohio, let alone any other state, because unfortunately, that's how these establishment people operate. But we have a choice here. At least the illusion of a choice. We'll see what ends up happening, again, certainly in the short and long term, but we can't have Vivek Ramaswamy around. It's time to put him away on the political landscape and make him irrelevant. So with that said, thanks for listening as always. I'll catch up with you on Wednesday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.